Hey guys, going to talk about BGLC. Did a market open long. There's three overall. There's three long strategies I overall like a lot. One is a pre-market long where it's very early on in the move, um, where you get these an initial pre-market pop. It comes back down, usually to like the 1 minute 20, super quickly. They have bids, and they just soak on the bids and rotate it straight back up. That's my pre-market long. But outside of pre-market longs, one of the best times to long is at market open. But the thing about market open longs is a couple different factors, right? You need a good pre-market structure, right? There's certain structures that exist in the pre-market that are very strong, right? And there's different variations, but a lot of it has to do with either painted resistance levels. For example, we talked about lower high paint, below high day, or something I pointed out right away to my Discord was I was like, oh, these quick pre-market pop and dumps are actually really strong because there's really not a whole lot of consolidation happening. Um, that might act as resistance, and also it's kind of a sign. It's a potential sign that somebody is accumulating shares for a push later. Now, I actually took a screenshot right here. I'm like, I think one of these plays, like a play like BGLC, could be a good long, but I didn't want a long here because um, usually this pattern works a lot better at market open, right? And it's only very rare. Like I remember my top long, I did a video on my top long that, I get some type of like prolonged pre-market consolidation that I like to long into, and it's usually, and that usually has to do with level two tricks or um, you know, very, very, very heavy chart paint with like lower highs, like we saw on top, and that type of thing. Also, the other main factor in this is market conditions, right? Longs have simply been working better once the market holo came around and we're back to 300% gappers and that type of thing. Uh, we're having a lot of continuation in the pre-market and at market open with longs, but a lot of it also has to do with stock selection, right? Because we're also having 70% faders, right? Um, I was actually kind of hoping this would stay weak, relatively weak into the open and then push like this. That would have been great. But they started pushing this really early, and I'm like, oh man, that kind of makes my long a lot worse. So I didn't want to long any of this. And I was like, all right, well, um, but I did think it was quite strong, right? Especially if you see here, a lot of times when you get these secondary pushes that are greater volume than the initial push. Oh, you can't see that. Sorry. Um, Sorry. I do this in MS Paint, by the way. I take a screenshot and I put it in MS Paint. Um, a lot of times when you get this kind of high volume reclaim that's even higher than the initial volume, that's another sign of accumulation. That's another sign that they're buying a lot of shares because it's very abnormal to have that much more increased buying volume than on the initial push, right? So I consider that. I consider this to be a bullish factor. I consider the accumulation to be bullish, but I still want to wait for market open because I know just from having traded this in the past that um, there often is a lack of significant bids following this up, and there's always a chance that this like did something like this and then ripped, right? Some type of market open little dump and then ripped. But market open, I'm always looking at market open volume. In this case, I would, it traded over 500,000, which I consider to be good enough. If it traded a couple 100,000 and the market was weaker, um, I wouldn't have touched it, even with this structure. But market open volume on the market open long is extremely important because you're going to get faked out on similar structures, right? So what do we have here? We have a double top, right? Double tops, just like on a couple plays over the past week. BMR, yeah, BMR pre-market long yesterday had a similar double top structure, and and a lot of times, yeah, maybe this is a big long trap right below high day and it fades. There's always potential for that, and I saw that, but I was so bullish. I was so bullish this structure and this volume that I'm like, I really don't want to touch this short side. I actually want to look for the long. So when I saw this get stuffed and get walked down, I was like, oh, that's interesting because now there's a double top that could get squeezed, right? So I just thought if the market open book and the market open volume look good. Also, it was actually extremely nice. There's support here and $1, and they went and swiped it. I love seeing support swipes because in low float land they will often swipe key support levels, which we see here. This is market open. Um, Before initiating a stock, right? Shaking out longs is always a good thing to do. It's very common in low float land to um, make a structure look bullish, shake out the people who are in that structure, and then reclaim it with bid follow up. So I went long here, right? This bid follow up here. Um, and, I just saw these bids hold. I went long and then I added a little bit more on this push. And I knew, oh, the other main factor is since this closed below 75 cents, it was going to have tight halt band. So we were going to get tight halt band manipulation. I was pretty convinced that um, we had a double top from the pre-market. That was a potential bullish factor, and you can actually see it on this double top again, like very little bid follow up. So this is actually like we've seen this exact book map type of short play, right? Where it does this aggressive move, it fills a bunch of asks, no bids are following up, and they pull it. So actually, if you're short bias, taking this trade up here, especially once it starts showing weakness here, is not bad. I just thought the pre-market structure and volume was really strong. So a lot of times, different people have, you know, different ways of looking at a chart, right? I was on a phone call with Mikey, Mikey Underdog, who pretty much, he goes along a lot more than me, um, and he has his own views on how he views volume, how he views the book, how he views structure, and I learn a lot. I learn a lot from listening to other people tell me how they look at things. And ultimately, whenever you're looking at a stock, you got to decide: do I think this is bullish or bearish? Right? Are you bullish bias the volume and the structure? Are you bearish? Right? So I didn't want to take this because I was bullish. So when I saw this walk down, you could see the empty space. Even though, yeah, there's empty space here, but market open will always have a different book. So it is important when, yeah, especially on these market open longs. Sometimes market open comes and they stack like 8 ask up here. There's like 8 30K, 40K ask all stack. Like, but you actually see the ask was very thin to the upside. There wasn't outside of this 1.2 guy. There wasn't really a whole lot of orders stacking ask, so I consider that to be bullish, right? If there was like, these big ask up, if these guys were like way down here, like, um, I would have been, a lot less confident in the long. So it uphalted, and luckily, believe it or not, I wasn't actually paying attention when this unhalted. So like I actually didn't have my stop loss. I kind of lost track of when the uphalt was coming, or the unhalt was coming. So apparently it dipped like 6 cents and then ripped, and I just didn't even see it. Honestly, I was like, oh, it's I actually looked at my computer screen and it was already uphalted. I was like, oh, cool. Um, so now, if we go to the chart, we could see, you know, here's the double top, here's the market open, here's the volume, about a 500,000 shares. Um, and now it's starting to uphalt right below the painted resistance level, which is super bullish. It is very, very bullish because any short who's shorted the stock in a pre-market um, is going to attempt to get out. Um, But the stock, since we have these tight halt bands, this is what happened with TPST. The price action is so quick and the halts are so tight that they have very little time to get out of the stock, right? So that's why a lot of these up halts are so quick, right? Go over here's another one. You see it on the book how quick it is. Just some of these are like 7 6 7 seconds, right? And people are just stuck. The problem is the reason I started selling. This is one of those counterintuitive things where, um, you might be asking like, why did I sell my position into these up halts, right? I started trying to sell shares, um, into these up halts here, and that's because I know, and you can see it on the book, um, that there's actually very little bid follow up, right? There's actually not really a whole lot of bids. What's really happening is people are just getting squeezed. I mean, it's literally what's happening. It's unhalting, it's gapping up on its unhalts, and people are freaking out when they're trying to get out, right? So it's kind of like this highly emotional squeeze where there isn't really a lot of meaningful, you know, bids supporting the stock. It's just a low float, and this is a characteristic of low floats. A big characteristic of low floats is that, outside of a few key levels, the order book could be really empty, and that could lead to big moves to the upside when shorts get squeezed, or to the downside when, for example, um, some type of long trap was initiated, right? Some type of painted liquidity move on an extended stock has just taken place, and once these key levels start to get broken, once these few big asks and big bids start to get broken, a lot of time it's just empty space, and you get 10, 15% dumps, right? So, I'm already up like, um, 60%, 70%. On these plays, and I just know, this is just an emotional, uphalting, no real bid type stock, and in low floats, you got to take money when you can because otherwise you put yourself at risk for big down halts, which is funny. We'll talk about the down halts. I called both of these down halts down in my Discord as being bullish. The problem is it's very difficult to time your long. It's hard to know when the bottom is in and when to time your long. But that's why I wanted to make this video. It's not just about my long, but it's also about avoiding bad shorts, right? I do want to talk more about that in the videos because it's a lot easier to get caught in bad trades than to make good trades, right? So, we see a lot of stuff happening on both of these moves, right? So it starts at downhalt, and we get two downhalts in a row. Now, the thing about two downhalts in a row is everybody is going to think, especially after some, move from 40 cents to, $2.2, stocks up 500%, they're going to see two downhalts in a row, and they're going to think it's weak, right? It's just it's very natural to think that way, right? The stock was strong, it was going parabolic, and now it's downhalted two times, and it's weak, right? Um, and I just told my room, I was just like, do not chase downhalts, and do not chase bounces after downhalts. Like, they're both bad shorts. It's very counterintuitive, but chasing a downhaul is a bad idea. There's certain situations. If it's some like liquidity, like Chinese liquidation dump, which is super rare, like that, something like that would happen intraday, that you can like have such a perfect read that you can add into downhalts. You know what I mean? Like, very rare that's a good idea. 99% of the time in low floats, on these high value manipulated plays with like clear chart paint, um, you're just opening yourself up to bet squeezes. They're just going to squeeze the short chasers, right? So a lot of times what happens is there's a bounce that has further follow through, and then possibly they come to attack this lower high and all this empty space with the another, especially in a market like this, another possibility is not just another high day clear out, but like a big follow up squeeze. This market conditions determine this type of price action, combined with the tight halt band manipulation and the high volume and all that stuff. So, I never short these. Every short. The reason shorts short these is because they think it's a FOMO trade. They think they're missing the move. 500%, stocks up 500% and down halts twice. They gotta get in, right? That's how most people think. And market makers will come and attack that thinking. They know it's a bad trade. Unless you're just scalping. But overall, a lot of people aren't trading that way, and the market makers are going to come in and do moves like this, right? So, I just told them, don't short out of this. Like I'm not interested. I told him I was not interested in shorting this. But like it's very hard to have the read down here on the long. I wish I big brain longed this all over again, down in like the 130s down here, but I didn't. And then it did a and then this looked really strong overall. I was not because to my mind, this lower high is at 1.8. High days at 224. There's all look at all this empty space. There's so much of it, right? So it's bullish. It's a bullish thing. It's bullish because everyone has their averages stuck down here. They're all stuck down here, right? So you get big rotations. It clears out high day, down halts twice again, and then I literally again literally my Discord was just like I was like look at this is a high day clear out down halt. Is that bearish or bullish? The answer is it's bullish, especially in this market. But again, it's really hard to. I did not have a read on the book. It's hard to know how. Just because I think it's bullish doesn't mean it's gonna do some crazy squeeze, right? There's always a chance you're wrong. And B, um, it's hard to know. We have three down halts here. It's hard to know how low it's gonna go before the manipulation back up happens. And just like how you don't want to short you don't want to you don't want to chase weakness when going short, and you don't want to chase strength when going long. You want, something like, my market open long, had a clean book map and a clean read with clean risk, right? I'm pretty much risking these bids. And I saw these bids hold for a good 30 seconds here, and I saw the buying come in. I saw this asterisk get taken out, and it made sense to me, right? And it's a tight risk trade based on the book. I wish I big brained long sub one, but I didn't do it. But like a lot of these moves, um, you know, don't if you don't have a clear bidder kind of holding the stock up or following the stock up, like you open yourself up to these 10%, 15% knife candles, right? Like you chase along because your thesis is that this is a long trap, short trap, it's going to squeeze. Um, and I'm not here to play with, 20, 30, 40% risk on my longs. I'm just not, it's not what I'm trying to do. So it's very difficult. Market open, pre-market and market open is a lot easier to go long, but like once you start getting into midday manipulation, it becomes a lot more difficult, right? So, um, but again, because I saw this and I saw this dump and I saw all the empty space, I was like, oh, they'll probably just squeeze shorts again. So I was not looking to short any of this price action um, at all. And then I really didn't see anything like, what's funny? In this market, there's a lot of big fades, but there's not necessarily clean entry signals, at least the way I like to trade, right? Um, you'd really have to have, something like this, like catching this fade with an average up here. A, you probably took losses on the front side, and B, even if your average was up here, um, the amount, your risk would have to be quite wide, right? Yeah, you might get lucky and top tick one every once in a while, but overall, um, no matter what your entry is, you don't know what the top's going to be, and I just don't see any clean liquidity move up here, which means, in my mind, you have to have wide risk to accommodate for this. So I really didn't see anything on the backside here. If anything, I just see a bunch of, controlled selling, and who knows what they're going to do, in the after hours or tomorrow or at the end of the week. Like, who knows? Like, there is a lot of empty space up here. But, I mean, stock did go up, I don't know, 800%. So maybe it just goes down. You know what I mean? 800% is kind of a lot. Um, so yeah, but I did want to talk about that. I want to talk about the market open long, the pre-market value, right? Shows signs of the double top, the market open bookmap signal. You see the $1 swipe here, and then yeah, and not, and you see these downhalts. Doesn't mean it's in this market. Downhalts, I said that in the pre-market, right to my Discord. I was like, downhalts do not mean the stock is weak. They do not mean it's weak. If anything, it's since everyone thinks that downhalt is weak in this market, it's strong, right? In periods of high liquidity and in crazy moves, downhalts are very dangerous, and they lure noob short sellers in the taking bad trades and having a lot of losses. So, anyways, that's the video for today. Information down below about the Discord, and you guys have a good one. See ya.